If you're dealing with debt, you know how frustrating it can be, and so do we. We're Family Credit Management, and over the past 20 years, our experts have helped thousands of families conquer their debt. What we do is work with you and your creditors to find a customized solution to your finances. Isn't it time you took control of your financial future? As one of the nation's largest nonprofit credit counseling agencies, we're trusted experts who can really help. But you must take the first step.
Hey, good evening. We are back for another episode. My name is Letitia Griffin and I am Certified Credit and Housing Counselor. And we're just here to talk to you today about any types of problems, issues, concerns that you may have regarding your debt, regarding finances, just regarding your overall financial health and well-being. And a lot of people don't realize how much finances actually play into your health. So if you've got questions, concerns, issues that you need to talk about or you need help with, feel free to give us a call. You can reach us at 312-738-1060. And we're here for the next 25 to 30 minutes or so. So feel free to call in. Also, if you do not get the chance to call in and you still have a question or you're a little bit shy, you don't want to go on air, it's understandable. I do want you to reach out to a counselor at 800-994-3328. Also, take advantage of that website that's listed there, familycredit.org. Now, that website is just a really, really wonderful resource when you're dealing with your finances, when you're dealing with your debt, whatever issues that you may have, and you're looking for professional help and advice. So again, feel free to reach out. The counselors are on standby, waiting to hear from you and answer your questions. And if you don't get a chance to, like I said, use that website because you can chat online with a counselor and get those answers that you're looking for. So it doesn't even need to be a phone call. You can do it by going online. So again, we're just here to talk about your finances and debt. And right now, I see a lot of people are in the push for a home. And there are lots of initiatives that are going on throughout the city that will help you with home buying. And also, you may still have your tax return that you've saved for that. So we want to just talk about a few aspects of that. We'll cover some home ownership, whether you should buy versus rent. And we'll also look at, of course, the importance of your credit report. We'll finish that up with the importance of knowing what's on your credit report and why. Again, feel free to reach out if you've got any questions about that topic or any topics, whether it be dealing with your creditors, bankruptcy, whatever. We're here to help. So, like I said, we've got a lot of people that are looking to buy this season, and it is buying season. But right now, the rates may or may not matter to you, and a lot of times what's first and foremost when looking to buy a home is, can you afford the payment? And we'll take a look at that. And when you're planning for buying a home, a lot of times you have to just really weigh out your options and figure out whether you should buy something or you should continue renting. And there's a lot of different aspects of that you can be looking at. Now you can think about, how do you feel about buying and how do you feel about renting? So it's about weighing out those options. If you're renting, a lot of times you don't have to worry about the upkeep. There are things that are listed in your lease that you may or may not have to pay for. And if you're going to buy, you want to make sure that you've got enough money to cover that. Now, another thing that you want to think about is, are you at the point where you want to renew your lease over and over again? Do you like that uncertainty of knowing that your landlord can kick you out at any time if something happens? And a lot of times people try and build clauses into their lease to protect against that, but it can be a headache too. And a lot of times when you're tired of dealing with your landlord, the first thing that you want to think about is, should you buy your own home? Again, there's so many different programs that can help you if you've got problems with that, or let's say you've got the money, you feel like you can afford it, but you don't know about a down payment. So we'll talk about those in a second too. Next thing you want to think about is, can you really afford to own the home? You want to think about those costs that come with home ownership that we don't even really think about. Like there could be emergencies that happen. Should you get a home warranty? And those are things that we can talk about as well. Another thing you want to think about is, how long do you plan on living in the area? And it looks like we'll touch on that in a second, but right now we've got our first call. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, do you have any tips on teaching my kids on how to save for the future?
Sure. Now we've got some great ideas on teaching your kids to save. One of the things that I do want to point out is if you go to Family Credit's website, there are some really great materials that you can actually get that will help teach children about savings. Another thing that you want to do is just try and involve them in their everyday, in your everyday finances as much as you are comfortable. Now I say that because a lot of times growing up, as parents and growing up, we didn't get that extra push into finances like there is today. We didn't know anything about the bills that came due, or thinking about your credit, or even savings. So right now is the perfect time to teach children how to save. We can look at what can they do to help in the house. That's a really, really great place to start. And not necessarily that you're going to start paying them, but offer them incentives to help out. Maybe look at doing an allowance for them based on their accomplishments, both like with school and around the house, and how to help with that. So those are some really great ways to start saving. Also, you can look at your bank or financial institution to see what do they offer for children as well. There's a lot of different banks that have great programs for children that will actually maybe like offer them incentives as well, or they'll get a monthly gift, something like that from the bank. They'll also get their statements. They can have parties that are involved with the kids. So you want to look at those types of things and look at establishing and training them to know and think that money is important, and money's not going to always come from you. They need to do some work on it as well. You may look at seeing what they can do to spark some entrepreneurship as well. Think about this. What are your child's talents? What is it that they can do? Do they like arts and crafts? Are they very successful with putting art together, or making bracelets, or designing things? There's so many different things that children can do that we can even help spark an entrepreneurial spirit. We can help them start their own business and look at what they can do for charities. And so there are lots of different ways that we can teach them to be more effective with their money, to think about how they will make the money in the future, and just get them talking about that too. You can also think about when you go out shopping, what you should introduce them to, and how you make your decisions on, and what the costs play into that too. So we're actually going to be doing a little bit more about children with money, hopefully next week. And we might even have a few guests that we can actually talk to about that as well. So that was a great question. So feel free to follow up and ask some other questions. Appreciate that. Now we were talking about whether you should look at renting versus buying. And one of the things that we want to touch on, like I said, is how long do you plan on living in that area? If you just know that you might have a job change coming up soon, or you might need to relocate, then you may not want to think about buying right away. You may want to rent for a while. Also, you can think about your goals. Where do you want to live? Think about that and start doing some research on how much it actually costs to live in that area, if there are any additional costs that you might not even think about, and what will it take for you to become a homeowner in that community. So those are some great things that you can talk about or discuss, and try and figure out what your goals are and your plans are for that. Also, you may want to think about, again, can you afford, if something comes up and an emergency happens, can you afford to cover that? And it goes right along into savings as well. How much should you be able to save to cover those types of things? You want to make sure that you can afford to save and to make that monthly payment. And then sometimes you may even look at what your monthly payment would be if you're trying to buy a home, and it might even be less than what you're renting now. So those are some things that you want to kick around and figure out what's best for you. Also, you want to think about the down payment. Now, bring this up because in Illinois and the Chicagoland area, there are so many different down payment assistance programs that are available that you may want to look into as well. I know in the Austin area, West Garfield Park, Hermosa, New City, Inglewood, West Pullman, there is the MMRP program that is just really becoming vastly popular. And what it does is they give you $15,000 just to put down on the purchase of your home. and you need to make sure you qualify. There are some restrictions on that. You can go to elevateenergy.org to find out more information about the MMRP program, and you can just contact your lender and see if they will work with it as well. If you also, there's also the Illinois IDA grants which are out, and with IDA they give you up to $10,000. There's different programs and different options there too, and so you may want to look at that because you can get the down payment assistance, but also keep in mind that a lot of times it's not you do need to qualify for it. It is income based, and you want to make sure that you actually need it. And typically when you're looking to purchase a home, there's a couple of different options out there for you. So you want to make sure that you keep your options open and that you know that you can afford the payment and that you can afford the down payment. Now, a lot of people ask, what does a down payment look like to purchase a home? Well, a typical down payment, what they like to see you have is at least 20% of the purchase price. Now that actually is a perfect down payment if you've got the money to cover that. But we know nowadays 20% may be considered a lot depending on the purchase price. And you have to not only pay that 20% down, you also have to cover the closing costs too. So you want to think about that, make sure that you've saved for that. And if you can afford that, you would be doing what's called a conventional loan. And with a conventional loan, the payment and the rate are typically better. We'll talk about the difference between the conventional and the FHA product in a little bit as well. Looks like we've got a caller. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm currently past due on my credit cards and I can't afford to bring them current. I was just wondering what options I had.
Now, you are not alone. There's lots of people that are struggling with that. But first, you need to take a look at what credit cards you actually have. And you want to think about what minimum payments are needed and how much you're short. Now, while you're making that list, you're looking at that, don't forget the due dates. That's important too. Then what you want to do is figure out what options you have available. Now, if you need help with that, counselors can help you set up repayment plans with your creditors and give you advice on what each creditor will do for you, who you should contact, and how you should go about doing it. That's the best thing that you can do, especially if you're in that situation. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You want to make sure that you can afford the payments, but a lot of times we've got warning signs when we notice that things are getting out of control. So we want to be able to touch it, to catch it, and make sure that our situation doesn't become overwhelming and that we don't get past due. Because you know, once you get past due, it's hard to make up for that. So we want you to keep that in mind and be diligent. Contact a counselor and see what you can do to get the assistance that you need so that you don't fall past due and you don't stay past due. All of the creditors, they do have assistance available, but it's just up to you to contact them. And if you don't feel comfortable contacting them, you can contact a counselor and they can help and step in on your behalf and help you with dealing with your creditors. There's help out there, you just have to ask for it. And so when you're dealing with your credit cards also and you're thinking about buying a home, it does tie into each other too, because when you're looking to buy a home, they want to make sure that you have not had any late payments within the past 12 months. And sometimes there's extenuating circumstances, things happen, we have life changes, it could be a divorce, it could be different loss of a spouse, different things that will happen, loss of a job, but it will cause us to become delinquent. The key is when you become delinquent, you work on fixing it and you don't stay there. So if you can prove that these are the steps that you've taken to make things better, and this is the path that you're on now, you realize that you were late, but things get better for you and you work on rebuilding. Now, even if you are late, what's going to happen is that your score is going to rebound. And once you start making your payments again consistently and things have changed for you, your score will improve over time. But it will take time to get to that point. Remember, those late payments, they'll stay on your report and they will just have that black mark on your report for years and years, up to 7 years even. But your score really only looks at the last 24 months worth of history. And that means that if you're only looking at the last 24 months, well, if you mess up today, it'll matter less and less as time goes on. Within the next 2 years, even though that mark is there, it really won't be factored in your score as long as you've taken steps to improve things and make things better for you. So keep that in mind, and like I said, counselors are there on standby, ready to help. Another part of home ownership is actually looking at your credit, dealing with it, and making sure you know what you can afford and what you're getting yourself into as far as your credit. You have to pay attention to it. There's so many different instances where collection agencies can pop up that you didn't know about, or you can forget a payment and miss the payment. And those things can actually have an effect on you. So you want to make sure you're staying diligent and paying attention. One thing I want you to do is make sure that you pay attention to the letters that come in the mail. And it seems now more and more we see that a lot of people are not paying attention to their mail, only because there's so much technology. We're relying on our emails and things like that we don't really even look at what's coming in the mail. But really, if you are looking at thinking about collection accounts and you've got collection calls that are coming in, first thing you should think about when someone calls you is, have I received a letter in the mail? The importance of this is because you're verifying or you're validating that debt. So you want to make sure that it's yours. If you haven't gotten anything in the mail about that debt, 9 times out of 10, it's not even your debt, and someone could even just be harassing you on the phone and trying to get you to make a payment on something that's not yours. So that's the first thing you want to think about when you're dealing with collections and you getting those creditor calls. Then after you figure that out and you know whether or not that it is yours or it isn't, then you can take action, because you have the power to improve your situation and to make things better for you. And you can tell the creditors to stop calling as long as you know what to do next. So we'll talk about that after we talk to our next caller. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, how long does it take to dispute an account with the credit bureaus?
Ooh. Now, when you're dealing with disputes and you want to get an answer right away, keep in mind that the credit bureaus have 30 days to respond to you once you enter a dispute. Now, with technology, things have gotten really, really great, so you don't necessarily have to wait that full time frame. Typically, the credit bureaus will try and give you a response within 2 weeks, but they have up to 30 days to respond. And they have an additional 15 to actually work on your actual inquiry. So they can respond and tell you, hey, we did get this dispute, but we just need a little bit more time fixing it. We're trying to verify some things, and we'll let you know what's happening as soon as we can. So you will get those types of updates. Then once you actually fix the item, or they fix the item on their report, they can either they have to tell you whether that item is valid and it really is your debt, you do need to pay it, or they can remove it from your report. If they can't validate it or they can't find out who it is, then they remove that off of that report right away, and you don't even have to worry about that. Also, if you find out that, or you receive the response back that that debt is valid, but you do not feel that way, you think that it's still not your debt or something is showing wrong on it, you can dispute it again. And when you go back to the credit bureaus to dispute, you can also ask for what happened on the last dispute. You can find out who they spoke with, how they verified it, and actually you can even find out the representative that actually worked on the dispute as well at the original creditor. So it's just a matter of delving into it and figuring out what's going on with that dispute on your end. But there's some really great processes that the credit bureaus have put into place to make the dispute process really, really easy. And this is part of what we're talking about with dealing with your report and making sure that you're ready for home ownership. So it all ties in together. But if something is on your report and it's not valid, you want to dispute it, you can go to the credit bureau's website and you can dispute it from their educational center. So remember, we've got TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And each one of them, they have their own website where you can go and look at how to dispute an item, and they'll walk you through it. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. Typically what you'll do is you'll just go and fill out a form, put in your contact information if you've got an account already established with the credit bureaus, and some of you will. If you've pulled your credit bureau through them before, then you may have set up an account, which you'll put in your username and password, and then you'll actually put what the dispute is. There'll be a drop down for you to choose, and if you've got documentation that the item was not yours, or that it was already disputed, that it was paid off, whatever that may be, you can even attach that to the dispute, and they will take that into consideration. And once you get that dispute back, again, you will get that whether it was valid or not, but you'll also get a copy of your updated credit report, which will show the changes as well. And that's something great to have, because now you've got proof that your dispute was valid, that they worked on it, and this is the results of that. So you want to make sure that you do your due diligence. Don't be scared of a dispute. Go ahead, fill out the process. And if you got some help with that, let's say you're looking at your report and you don't really understand it, or you don't know whether you should dispute it, feel free to contact a counselor and Family Credit at 800-994-3328. They can even sit down and go over the report with you. Now, that's just something really great for you to know, because the reports sometimes they can confuse you, and a lot of times you don't even really realize what information you should pay attention to. So when you're looking at your report, what's most important for you? You want to make sure that your identifying information is correct. You want to make sure your name, your address, all that information is right. You also want to make sure that everything is reporting correctly too. If you've got accounts that are showing up there, make sure that they're showing accurately. Look at your credit limits. That's the most important. A lot of times creditors will, they may not even report that amount correct, or they may overlook it. So you want to make sure that your credit limit is showing up, as well as your balance. And also, if you got some payments going on, it'll show you the date of last activity or the date of last payment. So that's always good to even pay attention to when you're looking at your credit report. You also want to make sure that there are no public records that are showing on your credit report too. And with public records, a lot of people don't realize what those are, but it's there, and it's anything that's gone through the court system, and you're possibly being sued about it. And sometimes we get the information, sometimes we don't. That's why it's important to pay attention to that, because anything that's on that public record section typically is there forever. And then you can't get it off if you pay it though. But the thing is, if you pay a public record and it comes off of your report, it's going to take 7 years from the date you paid it. And so it's still going to be there. It'll be updated, but it'll be there, and you'll see that mark. Looks like we've got another caller. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, my credit score is currently at 682. Do you think I should start applying for mortgages and wanting to purchase a home, or should I wait till I get a 700 credit score?
That really depends up to you. That's a really good question. People struggle with this, but you want to weigh out the difference between seeing what's the difference with you going now or waiting until you have that 700. And there is a difference though, but you want to think about, do you have a down payment saved, and can you afford that transaction? Now, let me tell you, if you got a 682 score, you can get a mortgage. Typically with mortgages, you see a lot of lenders that'll start at about 600 score, and there are some out there that can even do it with 580. But typically, if you have lower score and it's lower than 700, if you go with a conventional loan product like Freddie Mae or a Fannie Mac product, the insurance on that is going to be a little bit higher than if you were to wait for your score to become a 700, and you'll get a lower insurance payment or insurance premium that's due. Now, the difference between a 682 score and a 700 score probably isn't more than a couple of weeks of waiting and making some really, really positive changes on your report, if at all. Think about if your credit cards are close to the limit, maybe there's something that you can pay down. Still keep that account open, but just pay it down a little bit more. Typically, those with a higher credit score only use 7% of their available credit. 7%, that's it. So you think about that, because if you feel like you can afford it now, then go for it. Now, if you know for a fact that you are only looking to get an FHA loan and you qualify for an FHA loan and you're not looking at a conventional, then typically you can go ahead and apply now, because it doesn't matter whether your score is 600 or 850 if you're doing FHA. There's no real concessions on that. There's not a lower interest. There's not anything different, really. It just all depends on what you qualify for based on your income and your assets and your credit, of course. Doesn't play a huge factor into that FHA score. Now, if you've got any other questions, feel free to contact a counselor. They're there, ready to help, and can answer any questions that you may have. If you got any other questions, like I said, you can feel free to join us again next week, where we hopefully will have some guests, or we can talk a little bit more about the value of money and savings. And we can involve some children to get their aspects on it as well. Also, we can finish up wrapping up about home ownership and looking at what available options you have for dealing with your credit and making things better. Again, if you got some more questions, feel free to call in, or we'll see you next week. Again, you can join us at 800-994-3328 and ask those questions that you may have to any counselor. And we will see you next week.